Hey guys, it's Steven from the Green Engineers, and welcome to my little update video that has been requested on my YouTube. So I decided to oblige, and a lot of stuff is going on. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of these various things, and hopefully have some videos for you guys coming soon. As this one is not going to be video content, this is just voiceover content. So let's go ahead and talk about the current update. As I'm currently gaining about more and more people have been joining the YouTube. I think it's like a subscriber every average of like 3 4 days, at least one a week. So more and more people are asking kind of what's going on, and some people are interested in the products, and some people are interested in the development of the water jet as well. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the different things here. And I wrote some notes here to keep me concentrated on the topic here, and also help make sure that I don't miss anything for your guys' update, because sometimes they're pretty far and in between, depending on what's going on. So let's go ahead and go down the list here. I have 2 pages here in my little Maker notebook from Make magazine. Okay, so number one is I have two expanded parts of the business, and these are three parts of the business that will be being used as a stopgap to make sure that all my expenses are paid for, as well as paying for R&D. So that if, let's say, I left my job, right? If I wanted to leave my job early before I created any of my other products of those that I talked about, my hot end design, the shredder, the reclaimer, right? Um, my second version of my extruder, right, and my 3D printer, right? So those four products, right? If I didn't sell any of those, I would be, let's say, net at least net negative, where I'd pay for R&D and also the bills. So that's what I have developed with these, and obviously this is assuming that I'm able to drop my bills to the lowest possible number. But that's saying that I would not be building any personal savings as well as business savings, right? I'll be spending pretty much everything. So net is zero, right? Okay, so number one is the new one that just started a couple days ago. Pretty exciting. So I wanted to expand my making and selling of filament side of the business. So as you guys know, I'm working on my second version of my extruder, and one of the things that I've seen is a lot of people ask other manufacturers as well as myself, um, how can I get a sample to use your filament? Well, it would be great if it's just like any other manufacturer you see online, eSun or any of these other guys, right? Any of these other big manufacturers, um, Protopasta, eSun, Prusa, all these guys. You're like, hey, I want to try your filament. Well, it's pretty easy with that. You just buy it, right? So I'm thinking of doing the same idea on my end, is making filament with the extruder, my version 2 of the extruder, and then selling it to customers, right? Whether they want to use the filament from my extruder, or they want so that they could sample the product, the output of the product, the filament that comes out of the product, before they buy the product, or because they just want filament, right? Now, obviously, it's not a commercial grade machine, right? It's way slower. It's like experimental equipment, so it's not made for making filament like some of these other manufacturers that are making an entire spool in 5 hours, right? It's probably going to be more like 8 to 12 hours or something like that, like most other filament makers on the market for small desktop units, right? And you don't need nearly as much space as some of these other industrial units, which are, you know, 20 to 30 feet long, right? Maybe even longer setups, maybe up to 50 feet long. Anyways, so regular desktop unit. So I started developing that side of the business. I bought a competitor filament maker. That's going to be one of my direct competitors in the market when I join the market with my version 2 of my filament maker. And so also I'm able to kind of see what I like and what I don't like about that extruder. We'll talk about more which competitor I picked up, maybe in a video and some other update at some other time. So right now I'm doing some testing with changing some colorants and things like that, messing with the colorants and creating different colors and stuff like that, and making filament for my Stratasys to be used on certain the to be used on projects I'm going to talk about in this very next point. So that will be one of the parts of my business to make sure that my expenses for overhead, for regular business overhead, for uh, space and electricity and all that kind of stuff is paid for, and then also to pay for R&D for my products, right? Um, yeah. And then me, I would basically be working for free. Let's say theoretically, if all these three things that I'm going to be talking about were made what I expect them to make, everything would be zero basically. So the positives, the gain from the revenue gain would equal the revenue lost from the overhead. Right? So I'm going to be making filament and then selling it online. Most likely, the filament will be recycled plastic because that's kind of what I do, right? Recycle. So it'll most likely be recycled plastic. First off, it'll probably not be from my equipment. It will be from online purchasing from maybe local or even remote locations for recycled plastic. And then eventually it will be from local plastic that I manufacture and shred, right? I shred, I clean, I dry, then extrude. Right. Instead, I'll probably be right now I'll be buying online using competitor. So somebody else is going to shred it. I get it. I clean it, dry it, and then make the filament, and then use the competitor's filament maker. And then eventually, it'll be I gather locally, shred it, clean it, dry it, and then use the competitor filament maker again. And then eventually, when I replace my competitor filament maker with my filament maker, then I'll be doing everything with my own equipment. And then it may even be a combo of remote, non-local filament, non-local plastic shreds, and local plastic shreds that I shred personally. So it may be a mix between the two. But right now, I'm going to get remote until I can figure out a workflow to get it locally and then clean it and get all that stuff set up to be able to clean it locally and do all that stuff. Okay, so going to be selling filament online. Most likely is going to be recycled, and also it's going to be very low volume. So I'm probably only going to be able to make 2 spools a day, so only 14 available a week. So very, very, very low run, right? But my tolerances have been pretty good. I'm working on getting my tolerances tighter. Right now I'm at, depending on the pigment seems to be messing with stuff. With no pigment, natural material, I'm getting like a 0.02 millimeter plus minus, which is really good. That's like industry best right now. And at the worst, when I have pigment and things are kind of bouncing around, I'm at 0.1 millimeter, which is the worst in the industry. So, well, there's probably ones that are worse, but that's pretty bad. Usually the standard is 0.05 millimeter. Okay, so let's talk about the next one. The next one is I think I talked about this previously, but I'm doing commercial 3D printing. So I have my Stratasys online, my Stratasys Dimension 1200 ES SST, which you guys have probably seen me review on my YouTube talking about it. So I have that on an online platform, and I am printing customers' parts. And so right now I'm building up that part of the business so that part can grow, and it's going to be the same thing as the previous point I was talking about using the filament maker. So not only is it going to pay for my bills and the R&D, and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the R&D side, is that also is going to be doing R&D for all my equipment as well as that particular piece of equipment. So instead of just printing random things on a printer or making random filament, I'm making filament and then selling it on my filament maker. So as I'm making the filament, I could test it, get better and better and better tolerances, and improve that technology while also selling the material. Same thing with the printer. And obviously, this is assuming everything is within tolerance and everything is full disclosure. So if a tolerance is out of whack, I'm going to mention it, right? Say, hey, this is the tolerance of this material, right? Same thing with printer. If the printer is weird on tolerance, there'll be full disclosure, right? While I'm tuning it to get it better and better and better over time. Same kind of deal here. So right now I have my Stratasys registered on that website, and I'm also getting a new printer, which I'll mention in this section. I didn't actually write it down. I just remember that now. I'm getting a Frozen Sonic Mega 8K, which is coming from Taiwan as we speak right now. It's on a container ship coming to the East Coast, and then clear customs, and then coming to me. So hopefully I'm expecting that within 1 to 3 weeks here. I ordered it through a separate company rather than Frozen that was going to intake a whole bunch of them into the country, so that way I didn't have to worry about the tariffs and shipping it to me and getting it from the port and all that kind of stuff, and all the taxes at the port, etc., etc., all the duties, blah blah blah. So they were going to take care of that, and I paid a flat rate for everything. And they were supposed to get their first review units like August, long time ago, right? 2 months ago, right? But they kind of gypped them and they shipped their own pre-orders first. So that's why you see people with reviews right now. I was supposed to get the first units, right? But they ended up shipping their own. So they kind of screwed with these guys on the business deal, which is kind of shady. But it is what it is. I already purchased it, so just that was kind of messed up that they would do that and not stay true to the agreement that they had with this other company, that they were supposed to ship their units first. Instead, they decided to say, screw you guys, we're going to ship our own pre-orders first off of our website, even though we promised you that we would ship. We gave you our business word, that we would ship yours first. Anyways, so I should get that within the next 3 weeks. And so I should be getting that within the next 3 weeks or so, and then have that also up online so that I can experiment with resin printing as well, and see if there's a future for that technology and the green engineers. Recycling is difficult with that. Obviously, you can't really recycle it. It's photopolymer, so once you combine the sunlight, you can't get it out. So it's not a thermoplastic. You can't just remelt it. So we'll see if there's a future in that technology for the green engineers. So, anyways, I'll be experimenting with that as well as my dimension. So that will also be paying for the bills. Right now, I have my prices pretty low on the website. I'm only making about 2x material costs. So 100% 100% margins basically. So let's say a print is $5. I'm making $5 on top of that, right? So I have that right now. That's where it's at, and then slowly over time, I'm raising the rate, right? And then also raising the minimum of the part that I would pay. So, for example, it started at $10, and then every time I do a successful print and get a review, I increase the minimum cost that I will turn on my printer and do a print. So, for example, right now it's $10. Maybe eventually later it'll be like $20. So the order has to be $20 or greater, right? So hopefully over time that will go up, and I'll go up on the list and get more and more reviews, and so I'll get more and more jobs. And then by the time I have my filament, that's why I'm starting now. By the time I have my printer ready, I'll be way high up on the list, and I'll get a whole bunch of prints that I can have a whole bunch of variety of different prints that I wouldn't think of printing before, and be able to experiment that on my own printer, on the EcoBase printer that I'm working on. EcoBase is just working title. I haven't come up with a title, but my own printer that I'm developing, and so that will give it a lot of testing and also a lot of data to go back on to say, hey, these are all the parts that I printed, right? So and also it'll pay for the development, right? Because I'm getting paid for that part, and that part I'm doing on the printer, and that part could be a different part that the printer doesn't print very well, and then have to do some tweaking to improve the printer. So I basically got paid to do that tweak on my printer that will improve it, as well as get a review from a customer that doesn't know that I'm developing a printer and it's not biased about it, and then be able to talk about that later when I do the crowdfunding or not do crowdfunding, go direct to customer. Okay, so that's the second part of the business. So that's also going to be this part for just paying for the overhead and R&D costs. So the bare minimum to go full time, the green engineers. And so these are just kind of what I'm going to call keeping the lights on services, right? Really basic services. So that's going to help me develop my 3D printer when the 3D printer starts coming, and also be able to keep the lights on, as well as the filament maker is going to making the filament is going to help me develop the filament maker as well as keep the lights on. So I'm going to continue doing that on the website. Hopefully, over time, I am going to increase my prices and also increase my minimums and get more and more and more reviews to become also get more notoriety as a printer, industrial printer in the market. Okay, so another thing is number three of these keeping the lights on slash R&D stuff is continue to teaching online classes. So if you don't know, I'm on an online platform right now, Udemy, and I'll be talking about that more on uh, um, on YouTube and also this other platform that I'm on for 3D printing. Currently, I'm only on one, which is a TreatStock, is where I'm doing my 3D printing platform. So TreatStock, and then I may have my own, may eventually go directly to customer and have a direct to customer relationship, right? For example, I'm doing some things with like printing parts for escape rooms and things like that, but doing more things like that where they could directly contact me. So if you guys don't know, I teach online classes as well on Udemy. I think I mentioned that a couple times on my YouTube, and I'm going to be talking about that more. And that's point four. I'm going to be talking about how I'm going to tie all this stuff together. So I'm going to continue teaching online classes. Right now, I teach in various engineering subjects: CAD, Fusion 360, programming, game design, um, um, and 3D printing, of course. So and eventually product design and stuff like that. So, and Arduino also robotics and some stuff like how I developed the version one of the extruder, right? That was all Arduino stuff. So basically various engineering topics, and right now that's under the Green Engineers blanket, company blanket there. Eventually, I may change it so only some of the 3D printing stuff is under the Green Engineers, but we'll see. Because right now it doesn't say the Green Engineers; it just has my regular name as the teacher name, right? So we'll see. May change that, may separate it out. We'll see. But I'm going to be working on new classes this next coming year, and we're going to talk about the timeline here as we progress. So um, so next year I'm going to get back into it. I haven't really done anything with 3D with the classes this year because I've been doing some other sort of industrial design things, which I may talk about later. Anyways, um, and then also building out the shop, which I'll talk about in a second. So basically, I plan on creating usually what I do is I do a beginner, intermediate, and advanced course. So my 3D printing, I have one for FDM, 3D printing. So I only did a beginner, but I plan on redoing the beginner next year and then doing it intermediate and advanced. And that's where I'm going to be also combining some of the knowledge I learned from my commercial 3D printing, which I've learned a lot recently that I want to share and I want to put in and kind of monetize on the classes. So those will be very organized, very straightforward, very like scripted and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be all the information that I learned condensed, right? All the tips and tricks, all performance 3D printing, all condensed. And then also that would be a great add-on to when I sell my film, my 3D printer, because it'll be bundled. That class will be bundled with the 3D printer, right? So you can go on there and learn how to print all the different materials with that printer or any printer, whether you have my printer, which it'll come with it, the code to register on the class on Udemy most likely will come with it. And also, if you have any other printer, you can use that class and all that knowledge that I've gained through commercial printing of various different materials, right? So I plan on combining that all into an intermediate and advanced class, right? And so with that, that's also in there keeping the lights on slash paying for R&D, which these different materials, right? So for example, for that, I'll try different bed adhesives, different filaments and stuff like that. Over time, as you get into the higher performance materials, that gets very expensive. So this will cover that knowledge, right? As well as this next point, which is kind of like part B to that number three, which is I'm going to start posting some videos on YouTube for I say here teasers or snippets of these different types of knowledges that I'm different types of different snippets of knowledge that I'm learning and tips and tricks and my day job we call it BKM, best known method, right? The best known method of 3D printing a certain material or a certain trick to get your printer to print better, etc., etc. Right? So I'm going to start posting little snippets of that, kind of unorganized, maybe pretty well scripted, but the videos are going to be here and there, right? So obviously, if you want to be more efficient with your time, you would want to go to the class and purchase the class. But the stuff on YouTube will just have ads, but be free, right? And then maybe sponsors, I don't know, who knows? But there will be ads on that, but that will be all free content. So if you want to look for a specific tip and only that tip that you want to integrate into your 3D printing workflow, you can check that out on the YouTube. And then also that will drive more viewers to my website, right? Which I'll plug to the, so this kind of, they call it the funnel, right? Draw them to the website, draw them to the classes, and maybe to my 3D printing, this one, the website, the platform, TreatStock, so that if they don't want to actually integrate this technology, then to get good quality stuff, they can go to me and I can print it, etc. So I'll be pointing them in that direction. So to my website, to my products, to the 3D printing platform, and to the classes, right? And also promote probably my filament, obviously. So these, again, here, these should support R&D and pay for expenses so I can go full time, but be building no personal or business savings, right? So most likely this will just knock it out. And I don't plan on these making a whole bunch of money, right? So that's why I'm saying it's probably going to net zero. And I'm going to talk about how you're like, well, Steven, there's no way that these are going to pay for expenses. And that's because this is going to be a little different because of how my shop is set up. So, and I'll talk about that in a second. So right here, it says, so if I decided to, I could go full-time green engineers, even if I don't sell a single manufactured product. And so the manufactured product I'm talking about is those other 5, which is the extruder, the current 5, extruder, shredder, filament maker, version 2, and printer. So even if I don't sell a single one of those products, I'll be net zero, right? And so that will make sure that if I hit a low sump, like a low spot in these manufacturing of these other products, that these will keep the lights on, make sure I don't have to get a secondary job, and I could still go 100%, stay 100% in the green engineers, even if I hit a hard spot. So now with the shop, currently working on shop, and should start putting in tools in 3 months. So this is a very, very long time taking. I'm doing most of the work with me and my dad setting up the shop. Is not a, let's say, how can I say this? It's not an average shop, and I'm going to keep the details very vague right now. I'll talk about more in depth later on. But the reason why I'm doing this kind of setup is to make sure that I stay low on my overhead, so that way I can go to the green engineers at a more low earnings, because most of my products are niche, right? Niche, however you want to say it. So because it's in this lower bracket, in the certain way that I've set it up, requires way more upfront build out, but also the build out is way cheaper than getting somebody else involved. So it allows more time for the build out, but the build out is cheaper and it's still DIY, right? Do it yourself between me and my dad, mostly me, right? So because that is going to take the entire month. So I started doing the build out in December of last year, late December. And I'm thinking that it'll be ready to put in the build out would be completed and be ready to put in equipment by January, right? And then I'm saying that the target is to be completely 100%, have all my equipment working and ready to go to manufacture all 4 products, as well as doing the commercial 3D printing, filament making, and being able to record the classes, right? Be able to create class content and other videos, other promotional videos and educational videos for YouTube, right? For my Green Engineers channel. So all that stuff, 100% by June of next year, which is 2022, right? And then start putting equipment January 2022. Worst case scenario, the end of next year have everything 100%. But I'm targeting June, which is 6 months into the year. So that's 6 months after I first started putting in equipment. And obviously, because of that, by then next year I'm starting to purchase equipment. I have gone into a new role at my work, so my pay has increased a little bit. So I have a little bit more to put into the business because these other ones that I've started, they're still kind of in their infancy. For example, I've been doing the commercial 3D printing for about maybe 2 months, maybe 2 months. And so that's still coming in slow. I'm doing a print every week, every 2 weeks, 2 weeks at the at least, but usually one at least 1 week, at least 2 weeks, the lowest, and then the average is about one print a week, which is not nearly enough. But over time, it should build up as I get more reviews. I show up higher and higher on the listing and stuff like that. And then obviously, I just started doing the filament making. I just made my third spool today, so and I plan on making 2 spools a day. So that's still going, but there I need to tool up as far as getting spools, getting boxes, desiccant, packaging material, getting a vacuum sealer, all that kind of stuff, right? And then plastic for the vacuum sealer, et cetera, et cetera. So right now, that's not going to be enough to pay for the equipment next year, and I'm going to be paying for the equipment rather quickly. So, and again, that was more of a overhead pay stuff. So, and R&D, paying for R&D. So that will probably have to come out of my savings. So luckily, I'll have some tax liability there that can help me out because I went up to another level of the in my company. So I got in my day job. So I got a little bit more funding to spend on the equipment up front to eventually, um, if this ends up being for the lights on, keeping the lights on services, if that ends up making a little bit more, eventually that will pay off the equipment by itself while I'm developing the other pieces of equipment, those other five, the extruder, shredder, filament maker, and printer. So, gonna have to pull from the savings, but because I have a little bit more of a gap there, and also the market right now because of COVID is super high in my day job. So also the bonuses and stock is pretty high also right now. So that'll also help. Okay, so plan for my day job next year. Uh, Plans on being my last year in my day job, and then the idea is that I would quit, become green engineers full time. Uh, Hopefully not just relying on the keeping the lights on stuff, but obviously the keeping the lights on will keep me at zero, right? And then have at least um, and then at that time I'll be spending on, it says here, dropping my overhead to the lowest possible, as obviously. So I have to, so that possibly the keeping the lights on services will allow me to have some savings. Um, and then the overall plan is to, at least even while I'm working my day job and also building out my shop, to release the hot end and shredder next year at least. But plan is being full time the green engineers by end of next year, but have all equipment purchased and operational by the end of next year. That's what I talked about. That's bare minimum end of next year, but my target is June. So I kind of basically had to push back a year because of this long build out for the shop. Um, so I need to. My plan is being to be producing all products by the end of the following year, 2023, right? So that would be 2 years from here pretty soon, or yeah, 2 years. Be looking, and then I plan on be looking for a new home other than this shop that I'm talking about that I'm doing the build out for the Green Engineers end 2023, possibly, but most likely end of 2024. So a permanent home, right? And then that would be my base, whether that's in California, which I'm in right now, or in a different state. Continue R&D, and then after that, obviously, basically the rest of standard business, right? Continue R&D, continue developing products, develop some other products, develop some other services, etc., etc. Right? So that's the plan. And for those people that are really into this water jet build, that's obviously included with having all of the equipment 100% because I'm basically going to use that to produce the shredder. So that's going to be required. So obviously, that's going to be required within the next year. So that will be one of the first things. Obviously, the first things that I'm going to get up is some manufacturing equipment to manufacture tooling and things like that to get the water jet up and to have other fixtures and things like that. But then once that's up, then the water jet will come shortly after. Then all these manufacturing equipment stuff, water jet, laser for the printer, and all that other kind of things, right? Those will all come in first, and then those will all come in after I can make the basic equipment to be able to machine components for that. Because most likely my laser will be one that I build my own. My water jet's gonna be one that I build my own, etc., etc. Right? Okay, so that is kind of what the plan is right now. So end of next year, have all at least have all my equipment in the shop and 100% working and ready to go, right? And then the end of 2023, which is the following year after that. Oh, at the end of next year, also be full-time green engineers after building up all these lights on, keeping the lights on services. And then the following year after that is producing all parts, producing all equipment that I designed, be manufacturing all of those 5, the hot end, filament maker, shredder, filament maker, and 3D printer. I'll be manufacturing all those by the end of 2023. And then 2024, at that point, I would have been doing the Green Engineers full-time 1 year. By the end of 2023, looking for a permanent home other than the one that, other than the shop that I'll be in. And most likely that 2023, most likely it'll be end of 2024. Okay, so that's basically where we're at. Obviously, I'll be updating you guys at another point, hopefully in January, in the next 3 months, when the shop is being equipment is being populated inside the shop. And then we'll see if at that time I decide to disclose a little bit more information about the shop and why it's not your average shop build out and why it took so long to build out. Okay, so that's basically it, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for subscribing and following the projects and the Green Engineers in general. And to all the new subscribers, welcome. I plan on doing some more stuff over time and getting back to doing video content and talking more about this filament maker and maybe doing some reviews about this competitor filament maker in the meantime. And then also some printer things like the Stratasys, because in the January point, I do not plan on being using the Stratasys anymore, and I'll be switching to a different printer, so I'll also be talking about that as well. And also I'm developing some other tricky, kind of cool technologies for other applications that I may talk about as well. All right, so that's basically it. I'll see you guys in the next update. Talk to you guys later.